With the 2021-2022 NBA season coming up in about a month, I decided now would be a good time to discuss every single team before the season starts and just talk about how I think they will do and things like that. And I decided I'm going to be talking about the teams that are like the worst in the league down to the best in my own order. And right now I'm on number 27 and I have the Houston Rockets because I think they'll be the 27th best team in the NBA this upcoming season. So in today's video, I'll just be discussing how I think the Houston Rockets will do this upcoming season and how I think their players will do individually, things like that. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro. To start the video off, I'm going to talk about how I think Houston will do on the offensive side of the floor. And I actually think Houston could be a pretty decent offensive team because they have plenty of players who I can see flat out scoring the ball at a great level, and they arguably have like 3 or 4 guys who could average over 20 points this upcoming season. So unlike a lot of the other teams who I have in the bad category, I could actually see Houston being like an average offensive team in the league, which is pretty good for what I think their record will be because they have a lot of good offensive players. They have Jalen Green, who was selected with the number 2 overall pick, and he seemed like a guy who can be a really good scorer coming straight into the NBA since he didn't really play since he played with G League players and he didn't play in college, which is as close as you get to NBA players. And I feel like he could legitimately average 18 to 20 points this season. He probably wouldn't be too efficient, but I think he has a really good chance to win the Rookie of the Year award, and I think he'll be a really good offensive player in just his rookie year. They also have Kevin Porter Jr., who last year on Houston averaged like 16 points and stuff on not great efficiency, but I do think this year with him being able to adjust more to the NBA and him knowing for sure what his role is going to be, which is going to be the point guard of this team, I honestly expect him to average like 18 to 20 points, maybe 6 or 7 assists. I definitely think he's a guy who's going to be an elite guard in the future and an all-star level player, and I think he's going to prove to people, especially the Cleveland Cavaliers, that they never should have traded him for a second-round pick. The Rockets also have Christian Wood, who's a guy who I think is actually an all-star level player. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the entire basketball association. Last year he was literally averaging 23 points and like 9 rebounds, and I'm pretty sure he shot over 50% from the field and nearly 40% from 3. I actually think he's one of the best offensively talented big men in the entire NBA. He might be a top 6 or 7 center when it comes to offense, and I think he could average around the same amount of points, and I definitely think at this current moment he's the best player on this team. Probably a year or 2 from now he probably won't, but right now I think he's the best player, and it's kind of confusing to why no one ever brings him up when you're talking about the Rockets, and he's not even like an old like 30-year-old player. I think he's like 26 or 27. He's pretty young and he has a couple of years left that I think he could play at this an elite level, and maybe he could even improve like because before he was like a bench scrub, not a scrub. He was a good player, but he just didn't get play time. But now if he knows going to this season he's the starting center, he gets to take this amount of shots, maybe he could even be better than he was last year. But yeah, I'm really high on Christian Wood. The Rockets also have John Wall, who is a pretty big name, but he wasn't amazing last year. He did average 20 points, but it wasn't on good efficiency. But I'm gonna cut some slack to him just because he was coming off of missing 2 seasons in a row with a terrible ACL injury. And I'm actually more high on John Wall than most people are, because I actually think he can get back to the level he was before the injuries, like being a maybe not top 5 point guard, but I definitely think he could become like a top 8 or 7 point guard back in the league. The only problem is that he doesn't really fit well in Houston because the Rockets are trying to rebuild and he's an older player who's trying to prove himself. And I think the Rockets will probably want to start Kevin Porter Jr. over John Wall. But you have to remember, John is a guy who just came off of averaging 20 points and he just has a big ego because he's a multiple-time all-star. I don't know whether or not he would want to go to the bench. I don't know who's going to be starting that point guard. I think it should be Kevin Porter Jr. But to be honest, I just hope they buy out John Wall or something like that, trade him, because I think he could actually help some other teams out, maybe like the Clippers or something. But please don't act like John Wall is a scrub. He's still a very good player. The Rockets also have Alperen Sengun, who's a guy who I think has star potential. He probably won't reach that, obviously, in just his rookie season, because he's probably not going to start, but I definitely think he's one of the steals in the draft. Christian Wood is going to start, but I definitely think he could be a backup center. I hope they play Alperen over Daniel Theis, because Theis is a pretty good backup center. I don't even know why they signed him in the first place, but I think they should give their young guy in Alperen at least a few minutes. They also have Josh Christopher, who I think is an underrated player from this class, because he's a guy who may have all-star potential because he's crazy athletic, can create his own shot. Hopefully he gets consistent play time this year, because I think he could show out. They also have guys like Eric Gordon, who can space the floor. Kenyon Martin Jr. is good at finishing at the rim and dunking on everybody. Daniel Theis can finish at the rim, hit some mid-range shots. Jason Tate is good at the rim. I actually think this could be a team that ranks somewhere around the 15th to 20th best offense in the league, and I think that's pretty good for what I think their record is going to be, and compared to all the other bad teams in the NBA that I think will be bad teams this upcoming season. To discuss how I think Houston's going to be on the defensive side of the floor, I honestly don't think they're going to be that good at all, because all the main players who are going to play for them are not really good defenders. Jalen Green is a guy who has the intangibles to be a good defender, but he simply doesn't give the effort, like from what we've seen, and he just hasn't been a great one. I don't think he's going to be a liability, but I think he'll probably be like below average to average, like at best. At least that's what he's projected to be. Maybe he'll like come and be Kawhi, who knows. Kevin Porter Jr. is not a great defender at all. John Wall at this stage in his career is not a great defender. He's probably not going to be given full effort, since this is not going to be a winning team. And I actually feel like John might be unhappy if he's forced to come off the bench. Christian Wood is not a great defender, but he's average at best and at times. And guys like Kenyon Martin Jr. and Jason Tate are actually pretty solid, so as well as Daniel Theis, but I just don't think that's enough to actually be a really good defensive team. I also don't think this team's going to be given a full effort on defense, because they're not going to be that good, and I don't even know who their coach is, my bad, but I doubt he's a good defensive coach. To now discuss why I gave the Houston Rockets the number 27 ranking on my list is due to the fact that this is a pretty talented team on the offensive side of the floor. I'm not going to deny that, but I truly don't think the organization will, and I don't think that they should try and win just yet. I don't think their young core is fully done to the point where they need to be trying to make like the 8th seed or anything like that. Also, the Western Conference is just way too deep, and if they try and get like the 8th seed or something, they probably wouldn't even get it. I can name 10 better teams than them in the conference right now. To be honest, I do think there's actually a chance they could surprise me. Okay, I'm saying this. They could surprise me, maybe get the 10th or 11th seed in the conference, maybe make the play-in tournament. But I simply don't see that happening, and I wouldn't predict it. And also, I just want to say something. I might have ranked the Rockets a little bit too low on my list, but just know this, just because I ranked them number 27th doesn't mean I think they're a way worse team than a lot of the other bad teams that will be coming this season. I just put them behind some other teams for a reason, but another bad team that I think is going to be bad is the Sacramento Kings. I don't think the Sacramento Kings are going to be a way better team than Houston Rockets, but I do think they will have a better record overall. But there's also a chance the Rockets could have a better record. So what I'm saying is just basically I have these teams in tiers from bad teams to playoff contender, teams that are trying to get the 8th seed and stuff. Then I have playoff locks. Then I have title contenders, and there's a bunch of teams that are in the bad team section. So just don't get mad if your team is in the bad team section or below another bad team. It's not that serious. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Houston Rockets will make the playoffs. Drop a like on this video, as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content, and if you want to help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Also drop a comment on this video, as I do respond to all of my comments, and I'm out.